Alright, so I just got a quick idea. I guess it's kind of a theory. I know there's so many theories out there about Song of Ice and Fire. It's crazy, but I feel like if I were to write this down, there wouldn't be really any point. But I've watched a lot of James Johnson videos, LaDonna, a lot of their podcasts. They're great. They know their material, and they know a lot more than me. There's also great other people like Preston. I forget, is it Preston? I can't remember his last name. And you know, when I watch their videos, I get inspired to think about the books more and more and more, and that's kind of why the books are just so much more deeper than the TV show. The TV show is great. I would say the first season was really well done in terms of its setting and its mood. And it really captured that first book very well. And the showrunners, Dan and Dave, are doing a great job in terms of handling it, and they already know how George's books are going to end on a basic level because they've talked with George. I don't know how much detail he's revealed to them, but I would say that George has definitely revealed more to them than we know. Like actual proof. Because they have to know how they're going to end the show. So, back to what I was saying about my thought or theory or crackpot theory. And I'm not sure if this has been discussed. It probably has. You know, usually if you have a thought for something, somebody's already onto the same thought or has a similar thought. You know, there's only 12 stories in the world, so to speak. But it's how you tell them. So anyways, sorry about that. I think that George, because he loves using imagery and like big long analogies, the series, his magnum opus, which is called A Song of Ice and Fire, is split up into 7 books. Now, to me, 7 is not just any number. It's kind of a holy number when you look at certain art pieces or pieces of music, or I don't know. 7's generally a lucky number and it's a holy number. Let's all agree that it's a well-balanced number, so to speak. It's odd. It's not even. So, George's books are called A Song of Ice and Fire. He's dealing with the concept of balance. You have fire, all things that are Targaryen. Fire and blood is their sigil. And then you have ice, that represents the Starks. Winter is coming. Together, fire and ice, it's like a beautiful song. It creates a balance. So, it's like a shower, if you think about it. When you go in the shower, there's a knob. You go all the way to the left, it's hot. Very hot, in fact. When you go all the way to the right, it's cold. It's very cold. When you're in the center, it's balanced. Not too hot, not too cold. Just right. George is dealing with the idea of seasons, the idea of global warming. He's trying to say something. He's trying to tell us something about that. Nothing is happening by accident with these books. But he's saying how in King's Landing, you know, the long night, which is a long winter, which isn't just in terms of the weather, but he's referencing the others of bad things to come. The Starks keep alluding that winter is coming, that bad things are going to happen in an apocalyptic sense. They're talking about the future. It's the beginning of the end, or the end of the beginning, however you want to look at it. a cycle. And that's how seasons work. Song of Ice and Fire, all the characters that we know, even though they've kind of all separated, they are slowly coming back together and they're all going to meet. And George has said it's going to be a bittersweet ending. So it's going to be kind of happy and it's going to be kind of sad. He's said this in multiple interviews. He's hinted at many things. So it's not going to be a completely happy ending, but it's not going to be a completely sad ending either. It's going to be dead center, just like the shower analogy I was using. However, George really likes to play with the idea of a lot of things in the sense of what is history, what is real, what is being said here. We don't know. It's a mystery. Who killed John Aaron? I mean, we can all agree as of right now that John Aaron was poisoned by Lysa Tully, who is convinced, Littlefinger had convinced Lysa Tully to poison John Aaron in order to get her to write the letter to the Starks, warning them of the Lannisters, because Littlefinger had this whole lawfully neutral evil plan to create a war between the Starks and the Lannisters, like the War of Roses. And as Barry said in the show, and it was said in the book as well, directly from the book, power resides where men believe it resides. It's a trick, a shadow on the wall, and a very small man can cast a very large shadow. There you have it. That is from the book and from the show. So George is trying to tell us something that someone like Littlefinger, a little man, or like Tyrion, who's physically little, can create this idea of power. That power isn't real. You put it in the minds of people that you are powerful or that something is powerful and people believe it. It's like magic. And you can get people to believe in all kinds of superstitions or religions or faiths or certain unexplainable events. But then there are unexplainable events that we can't explain. So magic is slowly seeping its way into the books and into the show. I mean, just for spoilers, I don't like saying spoiler tags because I feel like people say it all the time and it's kind of getting sickening by this point. If you haven't read the books, read the fucking books. I mean, they're a fucking masterpiece. It's some of the best work you will ever read. And check out LaDonna's videos along with her son James Johnson. They make some of the best discussions and I guess they're in a sense seminars and lectures. Very well done. There's a lot of passion. I'll put the link in the description so you can check them out. They are very, very good. I don't do this on a regular basis, but I write a lot of notes. And I don't like to look at too many theories because I really only follow James Johnson, Preston Jacobs, and a couple other people. There's a lot of false prophets out there with I mean, I know everyone theorizes, but there's a lot of crackpot theories out there. There's too wacky for my taste. But the beauty of A Song of Ice and Fire, or any art in general, is that you can interpret it any way you want. You can come up with your own theories. You don't need to you can go on YouTube and you can get inspired, or you can read the books and come up with your own theories. That's the beauty. That's how George has created such an amazing world with beautiful cosmology and like a setting that you just get sucked into and lost, and you don't know what to believe, especially when you start reading about the Maesters, which is interesting because he's giving us hints. Excuse me, it's dusty. So The World of Ice and Fire just came out. It was done by Elio and Linda, who are very, very close friends with George. They've been with George for a very long time. I would check out their stuff too. if you got like some time to spare, be ready. Make some green tea and just listen to them. They are very knowledgeable people, and they are very passionate about the series itself in terms of the books. They still watch the show. They understand that it's a show, but they are very knowledgeable and they know their shit. So I would check them out as well. And I know I've gone on in a tangent. I apologize. But I just have to say all these things first. Give my credit where credit's due. So as I was saying, I was talking about the seasons, fire and ice. The idea of balance. Keep that image of a shower knob. Go to the left, you have fire. Go to the right, you have ice. Hot, cold. In the middle, dead center balance. The others, dragons. And what happens when fire and ice comes together? You get mist, you get water, you get air in a sense, you get a strange alchemy of things. Because they're two opposing forces that need to come together, even though they're very much different. So it's a chaotically beautiful thing that is exploding and imploding all at the same time. It's violent, it's happy, it's bittersweet, which is where we're going to lead. Back to my point for the 40th fucking time. I think, just bear with me, because this is my own theory, okay? And if someone's come up with this, I'm sorry, but I thought I had an epiphany one day, or one night. I think that George is playing a little bit of a dungeon master role. And when I say dungeon master role, I'm talking about Dungeons and Dragons. Why do I say that? I say that because George is clearly a fan of Dungeons and Dragons. You have to remember, he grew up in the 70s. He didn't really play with video games. He read comics. He watched a lot of TV, monsters and stuff like that. And I was talking to a lot of my friends and their parents, who were really into Dungeons and Dragons. It was like a video game. It's a role-playing game. This was the very first role-playing game. It was like when... it was like when Lord of the Rings first came out. That's the textbook for all fantasy books. And George R.R. Martin, notice the 2 R's in his name, just like J.R. of Tolkien. You can tell he's a huge fan. He is taking his childhood nostalgia and putting that into his series. He's rolling all the dice, maybe randomly for some characters, maybe some are pre-planned. You have some characters that are chaotically good, some that are neutral evil, such as Littlefinger, some that are lawfully evil, like Tywin Lannister, some that are lawfully good, like Ned Stark. I mean, the list goes on and on. Nothing is black and white, right? Nothing is absolutely black and white in terms of moral alignments, because somebody's moral alignments can change. You had Jaime Lannister, for example. People hated them in the show and in the books. But by the 3rd book, or halfway in the 3rd book, you're rooting for him. And that's not an easy thing to do. When people try to do that, when authors try to do that, or when directors try to do that, and they're unsuccessful, or they rush into it, it doesn't seem natural. It doesn't come off as real. And nothing is real when you see it on TV, but I mean, it just seems forced, is what I'm trying to say. But when you see Jaime lose his hand, and then go from this period of suffering and rethinking his life to saving Brienne in the bear pit, you can't help but root for him. And he's one of my favorite characters in the series. I mean, as of now, Rhaegar Targaryen is one of my favorite characters. In the books, of course, because in the show you don't see him, or there's hardly anything about him. Daario Naharis, in the books, envisioned him with purple beard, and a blue beard. In the show, he's alright. The new actor does a pretty good job of him. But, in the books, you get the sense that he's like a peacock. Which is pretty awesome. I like Barristan Selmy. Just a cool knight that you enjoy reading about. Like, doesn't matter about Barristan Selmy's age. He's a badass. A lawfully good badass, if you will. Very, like Ned Stark. He's very honor-bound. But sometimes that's what gets people killed. And that's what George has been trying to tell us. That sometimes being smart isn't enough to survive this world, whether it's Game of Thrones or our own world. Sometimes being clever, like Tywin Lannister in some instances, is the only way to survive. It's not how strong you are in terms of physicality. It's more of how clever you are. So it's like a game of chess, right? It's a chess for the mind. Tywin Lannister took his time. He saved the pieces for the right moment. And that's how Robb Stark got killed. He was too hasty. He felt he had to marry Jane Westerling out of some honor-bound duty, just like his father, which is why Robb Stark got killed. So, I am so sorry. I got off tangent again, because I just love the series so much. And I could talk about it for hours and hours and hours, and I wish, or I hope, that maybe James might let me on one of their discussions. So I'm going to link up my video, and he can listen to this, see what he has to say. See if I'm worthy for the council, so to speak. Because Tony Teflon, LaDonna, James, I love them so much. Like, you can tell the passion that comes from them. It's like honey coming off their lips. It's great. Like, I love seeing that. Those are diehard fans in my books. So, as I was saying, what was I saying? Okay, so George is like the D&D master, if you will. Let's pretend, okay, that George R.R. Martin, it's my dog, he's loud, is the D&D master, the Dungeons and Dragons master of A Song of Ice and Fire. He is, because he's created the characters, he's created all the sub-characters, he's created the setting, he's created the universe, he's created the whole family lineages, the whole back history, he has all the novellas with the Tale of Dunk and Egg. He's created a whole universe. So, I'm going to lay out kind of a wacky theory, but I don't think it's wacky in my own mind. Like I said, come up with your own theories. That's the beauty of these books. So George, I think, at the 7th book, which is right now called A Dream of Spring, I think he's gonna pull a card out of his ass. Like, just fucking surprise us. And what I think that card is gonna be, he's gonna be like, okay, you, the reader, okay, so you've read up all to this point? And this could be in the epilogue, I don't know. I have a feeling it could be in the epilogue. Or it could be something after the epilogue. George is gonna enter himself into the story as a character. And he's gonna say, yeah, all this isn't real. I just created this. It's like Dungeons and Dragons. This is all simulated. I think he's gonna do like kind of what Hideo Kojima of Metal Gear Solid does. Because if you don't know Metal Gear Solid, I would strongly suggest playing that game. Him and George R.R. Martin have a lot of similarities in terms of mythological storytelling, in terms of how they like to play with their audience or troll the audience. I like that term, troll. It's a great word, isn't it? But I think he's going to insert himself into the last book, A Dream of Spring, at some point, definitely near the end. And he's going to tell us, this is where the bittersweet is coming. He's gonna say to us, the reader, listen, all this shit you've been reading, it's like a dream world, man. Your dream, this is what I wanted to live in, so I created all this for you. And he's gonna explain, maybe go into depth about the characters and do this weird retrospective thing. I know it sounds fucking weird, but this is how I think it's gonna end. Because if you think about it, the first book started off in a very mysterious kind of way, where there was very little magic. But as you started getting into the third book, that's where you saw some serious magic taking place. I mean, Catelyn Stark was resurrected. In the show, they didn't bring her back. But in the third book, that was a huge deal. And everyone's freaking out about Jon Snow being supposedly the son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen. A Song of Ice and Fire. Is he Azor Ahai? Is he Paul Muad'Dib? Is he Neo, the Messiah to come? I think so. It's a safe bet. It's written in all the books. All the hints are there. R plus L equals J. Let's safely assume. I mean, let's all agree on that for now. But what George is going to do is he's going to say, fuck R plus L equals J. I created this. Fuck you, the reader. You believe the beauty is in your interpretations. He's going to say that to us as readers, as the audience. It's a show. It's like a Shakespearean play, in a sense. He's gonna insert himself as a character in the 7th book, and I know I'm making a fucking huge fucking statement right now, and I'm 22 minutes in, but that's okay. I'm not going to be talking for hours. But I just want you to think about it. That's all I'm asking. Think about how the books first started and how they are going to end. You have the Winds of Winter, which is going to be like a very dark and kind of chapter, a cleansing chapter. If Jon Snow comes back as Azor Ahai and is resurrected by either Melisandre or the Night's King, or is or comes back by some kind of strange way, if he's warged into his direwolf because Melisandre has told him to keep his direwolf close, she knew of something to happen, and she had doubt about Stannis being Azor Ahai in that one chapter in Dance of Dragons. I would strongly reread that chapter because it is so fucking interesting. And I'm sorry for my language, but I'm just very excited. So yes, I think George, by the 7th book, and this is for you, James, I really want you to think about this. Like, actually, and maybe you have, but I don't know if, I haven't checked out your videos recently. Like, I favored a lot of your videos, especially about the Children of the Forest and how they could be like reptilian-like creatures, and they might not be all as good as they seem, and the history has been kind of painted a certain way. But at the same time, they're kind of like representative of First Nations or Indios-like people, which is very interesting. You read The World of Ice and Fire, you see the pictures, and they look very reptilian-like, with the cat-like eyes and the scaly skin, and they're small. I mean, I don't know what the deal is. And the deal with the Maesters, with The World of Ice and Fire, that book was written for Tommen. It's written for a king. So Maesters like to manipulate history. So I think that's what George is trying to tell us, that I'm the author. I can manipulate history too. I can tell the story the way I want. I can make mistakes. I'm human. I had a horse that changed different sexes throughout the books. I had someone who had different color eyes or changed their color eyes. And he wants to say, I'm not a perfect person. I can make mistakes. But at the same time, I can create these beautiful characters. So, I mean, I don't know if he's going to insert himself as a character, but I could definitely see him having a chapter or a section before the acknowledgement section saying that this is not all real, I fooled you, you believed everything up until this point. I just created everything in my mind, like a D&D game. Some of the characters that were pre-planned in terms of the moral alignments, and some of them I randomly rolled the dice for. Or I was inspired by other loosely based events. Because George has always said in interviews that, you know, he always says that, you know, I love all the legends and tales about, you know, like certain historical events, such as the Black Dinner. That's Scottish history he was talking about. But he's saying how, when I started reading about it, it's kind of boring. I really liked hearing the tales. And I guess in a sense he's saying he's talking about how when we used to read the Iliad or the Odyssey, not read it, those were tales that used to be orally passed down. So he's in a sense trying to emulate the idea of tall tales and things that are like a song or like something that a bard would tell a person out on the street, like a story, like a conversation, you know? And he's really written the books with so much love, almost like the mind of a child who's just having fun with himself and fun with us as the audience, that he's going to be like, yeah, this is all in my head, and I'm a character too. In fact, all the characters have elements of me, or they're from elements of people that I know in my life that have heavily influenced me, or where some of them were dicks to me. And I was just having fun. And I want to prove to you, the audience, that you can do the same thing. You can create a beautiful world. Because George always stresses to us, you know, what I say to writers is that you have to write and you have to read. And he's right, man. He's fucking right. It's so simple. I mean, how else are you gonna fucking do it? You don't fucking go to school and learn how to write. Your style is your style. And George is very into that. That's how he's not just a writer. To me, he's not a professional. He's an artist. Like a painter. Okay? And that's a difference to me in terms of being an artist and professional. When people are... Don't get me wrong. You can be very good at your craft. But to me, an artist is someone who's free. They don't follow rules. There are no rules. You're like a fucking punk. It's like punk rock. Okay? I don't know what professional means. I'm putting that in quotation marks. To me, that's just someone who gets paid very, very well compared to amateurs. Someone who doesn't get paid. Artists do the same thing, but they got this mentality that they want to find answers, or they're doing it more for themselves. Professionals are doing it mostly for a paycheck, and that's the fucking difference in my books. George is an artist. Anyways, George is gonna insert himself in the books, or he's gonna fucking say this is not all real, this never fucking happened, like da 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 da. You know, they're all characters, they're all made up. You know, this is a book. I'm now inserting myself into the story somehow, and he's going to talk in a retrospective format. I mean, some of my best authors, are Anne Rice, George R.R. Martin, Charles Bukowski, Frank Herbert of Dune, who George R.R. Martin is a huge fan of, and I see a lot of fucking similarities in terms of Paul Muad'Dib and Azor Ahai and Messiah coming, you know, the world's shit, and there needs to be a cleansing, and there needs to be someone or something to happen in order for people to be awakened or to be cleansed of the evil, in quotation marks, that is on this world. But in Dune, which is a magnum opus, just like George's A Song of Ice and Fire, Muad'Dib wasn't perfect either. And he had kids, and they grew into an empire, and It's just like Daenerys, right? She's trying to do the right thing. She's a chaotically good being. She's a Targaryen. But at the same time, she's a conqueror. She doesn't take shit from anybody. But her empire has kind of gone in this strange kind of way. You know, it's like Anakin Skywalker, a tragic hero, right? But she's come to this point, Daenerys, where she has to find herself and she has to remember who she is, which is a quote that is always brought up in the book. Remember who you are. So she's kind of lost sight of herself because she's been sitting comfortably on her throne that is in Marine. So at the end of A Dance of Dragons, she's on her dragon. The Dothraki come. This is how she's got to the point. She's reminded. But I don't know what's going to happen in the Winds of Winter. I'm going to assume that Jon Snow is going to come at some point during the book. I would say he's going to bring Jon Snow maybe halfway in the Winds of Winter, maybe in the climax, or maybe he might bring him he might fucking bring him in the epilogue of the Winds of Winter, just to fuck with us. Just to fucking, like, draw at that card, or he's waiting for that chess piece at the right moment, right? You know? So, Bobby Fischer, a chess player, he waited he had all the pieces down, right? He's waiting for the right move. He doesn't need to bring Jon Snow in the beginning of the book. It would be stupid. Why do you have to fucking rush into it? He could even bring Jon Snow in a Dream of Spring. The point is, I don't know when he's going to do it, now that I think about it. But I think he will bring him in the Winds of Winter. But it just won't be right away. And then A Dream of Spring is going to be a very fucking meta, philosophical kind of thing. Weird things are going to be starting again. So we've gone from mystery and things that are very political and lawful from the first book to things that are now becoming supernatural and sacred and magical and unexplainable. And then he's going to shift to real life, and he's going to talk in a retrospective. George is going to insert himself as a character. If he does that, where he has his name as a chapter, can you imagine a point of view and it says George? Could you imagine that? That will blow my fucking mind, and that's why I just had to fucking say this out. I couldn't type this out. I have too many thoughts, too many burning thoughts that are in my head. So, James, I hope you get this. I hope you listen to it. If you already thought of this, which I'm probably sure you have, you're a smart guy, very smart guy. If you haven't, then I hope this inspires you or enlightens you in some way, or makes you think about things differently, or I hope that you just challenge it. I really don't care. I just hope that it gets you to think in some way, because I love your guys' theories, and I've been meaning to do more, but I've been actually writing a lot of music. Actually, I make electronic music and a lot of rock and roll, alternative music. It's all on my YouTube, my SoundCloud, Reverb Nation, Icarus Daze. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to promote myself anymore because it's just weird. But, yeah. Alright. Hope you enjoyed it.